where we are, of course, I capture all of these from the latest CSIS report that was submitted to the president. So these were mostly captions that I've extracted out, and you can see on the screen, and this information is actually very, 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 very old. It's actually gotten worse, since the last time, these, publications were made. And I'm sure you guys have heard of NSA and all this stuff in the news. So we are in a really, really bad spot, in terms of, U.S. assets, not just U.S. alone, but educational resources. I work in Minnesota, and I spend about 30% of my time doing consulting. I've done some work for Mayo Clinic, and around July this year, a couple of the interns that they have from Japan and mostly China stole a whole bunch of data. Actually they asked them not to return, right? The reason is because U.S. is losing a lot of its intellectual wealth, through problem that we have in terms of cybersecurity. A lot of our infrastructure is now secure, and there is no easy way to fix it. The problem with cybersecurity, as we all know, is not that you can just easily fix it. It's a level playing field for everybody. You don't have any advantage because you're in the U.S., right? The guys in China, the guys in several other countries can sit down, and if they have the same skills, they can leverage the same sort of attack against your infrastructure. So why are we talking about it? The challenge for us is that we are not even ready to fix the problem. One of the things that was published is there's only 1,000 security professionals that are being produced, by U.S., colleges and universities. And according to the USCIS report, we need about 10 to 30,000. And out of those 1,000 that's been graduated, most of them are no good. That is the scary part of it. They have a certificate, they can tell you they have a degree, but give them a network packet and tell them to analyze it. They can't do anything about it. That is the problem. So first of all, we're coming short on the number of graduates that we need to graduate, and the ones that have been graduated, we're having a problem with them. I taught a capstone class for a master's degree student late last year, December. These are students that are going to be graduating with their master's degree, and they have about couple of weeks to graduate. And I brought a system to the class. Actually, I took it from the DoD challenge, and I said, okay, here's one of your capstone projects, and not a single person in the class actually understand what tools to use to analyze a network packet. Not a single student in the class was able to set up a secure network. Not a single student, a master's degree student, was able to write a simple script just to analyze what a Wireshark will do. As a matter of fact, I actually wrote a poll in the class. 85% of the students in the class told me that they've never used Wireshark to actually analyze an actual packet. So no wonder, most of the graduates that we produce have problems being able to function in the field. It's kind of actually scary when you look at it, and that's one of the reasons, I started saying, okay, where do we need to go? Okay, according to their recommendation, we need to promote, sorry, there's a typo over there, we need to promote the development of more rigorous curriculum in our schools. Number two is we need to support the development and adoption of technically rigorous professional certifications. These number one and number two really concern most of us in the academic community, because first of all, in order for us to develop a rigorous curriculum, we need instructors who are actually in tune with what's going on, because I can only teach what I know. If I don't know it, I cannot teach it. But before we even get to that point, looking at the challenges that we have, the other two here, I try not to lay a whole lot of emphasis on it. It's very, very, very important. but they are not something that I feel like as a faculty that I can directly address right away. There's the VILT program that CTC is doing that really addresses this a lot, and I think they have a session again tomorrow that will probably talk more about VILT. But the first two, I think, affect a lot of the faculty, curriculum, and secondly, to try to integrate relevant certification into our curriculum. Why are we doing that? For me, the purpose is, first of all, as a faculty, we need to acknowledge that most of us are completely outdated in terms of what we need to teach when it comes to cybersecurity. Fewer faculty, there's a poll that came out last month, a survey, and only 18% of IT instructor, both cybersecurity and whatsoever, have actually taken any course in cybersecurity related in the last 5 years. Less than 17%. And if you look around the colleges and talk with a lot of our colleagues, fewer and fewer dollars are being made available for training. And if you want to take any meaningful training in cybersecurity, maybe, well,
it's on your own dime.
It's on your own dime, and I don't know how many faculties willing to shell out $3,000 or $4,000, to go take some training in order for you to actually be able to be in the conversation. So, what do we need to do? The group say, this group, that the current professional certificate regime is merely inadequate because it actually creates a dangerous sense of false sense of security for the following reason. And they're going on and list a couple of stuff. And what I really want to talk about as far as this is concerned is, for us as a faculty, there are few things that needs to be done. Number one, faculties need to be trained, and I will address that later in terms of the resources that are available for faculties to get themselves trained. Because if we as a faculty does not bring ourselves or will not bring ourselves up to a point where we need to be, we really cannot help the students. And if we cannot help the student, the problem is just going to get worse. Another thing is the certifications that they mentioned over here. I have probably over 20 certifications. I have a certified cracker and a couple of the popular certifications. It's nearly not enough. Those are good certifications that we can incorporate into the curriculum. It's very great. I know Casey and you've worked with some groups here that are these lab or net lab, right? And that's a very, very good resources that I think actually gives the students the opportunity to actually do something hands-on in the area of cybersecurity. This problem, we looked at it at our college, the Century College, about over 2 years ago, and say, what can we do? We realize we have a problem. We look at our curriculum. We teach a bunch of Cisco classes, some programming classes, security flaws, and so on and so forth. But the problem in the cybersecurity, we realize we're failing, just like many other colleges. So one of the first things we did was we looked around and said, where can we get our faculty trained? We talked to the administration, and the first thing they tell us is there's no money. We get $1,600 a year for faculty development, and you look around, and that's even a lot of money compared to other colleges. And we looked around, and there are you can go for conference with that, but conference is conference. That's different from training. So we have a problem with that, so we couldn't go. We were lucky to find one of our colleagues say, well, there's a summer working connection group, which I will talk about, later on, and that really, helped us out a great deal. One of the stuff we also looked at is to talk with other, industry, who was willing to give us a grant and financial aid to train faculty. Because I think that is where most of the problem really is today. Most of our faculty do not have hands-on experience. And if you don't have hands-on experience, I don't care how much you want to help the student. If you don't know it, you cannot teach it. And then you end up teaching PowerPoint slides from a bunch of these publishers that are really not relevant. So in our case, we sent about 4 faculties for training. Took about a year and a half to actually get somewhere with it. cost us a lot of money. Then we came back and said, okay, now we need to incorporate certification into our curriculum. We realized that there's a lot of the certification. The first semester, we introduced it, and a lot of our students just make a mockery of the whole exercise because they went online, get the dump for the exam, and they all passed it. They passed it and still are no good because they just went online, they memorized the question, and they came out and passed it. So we said, okay, what can we do? How can we fix the problem? That was when we started introducing, the hands-on lab, and said, okay, you would not be considered to pass this class unless you have this X, Y, Z. We changed our assessment altogether. Part of the assessment is you actually have to pass the hands-on labs that are simulated. Took us a bunch of time. We get some help from a lot of US Bank, Wells Fargo personnel who came in to help us to set up something that is realistic. So, and we went away from having a final that is just 3 hours final to 2 weeks final. So, in order for you to pass your final, it takes you 2 weeks long. So the lab is there for you. You can do it from just about anywhere else to do it. So they have actually something they can learn hands-on. Then your certification gets stacked on top of that. And on top of that, we use these simulated, net lab resources. The result was, phenomenal. We graduated last year. We graduated from that section of department. We graduated 12 students from that area of concentration. 12 of them was hired. And I believe that, and we've graduated more students the year before, and most of them ended up as a desk of support because really they couldn't honestly go for an interview and pass. I'm going to flip this one quickly, and I'm going to talk about the Century College case study, and I'll talk about the Convergence College Network because personally speaking, I didn't hear about the Convergence College Network until sometime last year. And the reason was, we didn't know. We honestly just didn't know. Nobody told us anything. We spent a bunch of money taking trainings and all that kind of stuff, and they were very expensive. And of course, every year we come and say we need more money for training. We have to make a strong case, and they would tell us and say, "Wow, you guys are just like a black hole. You always come back, come back every year for more money." And we tell them, well, there's so much to learn, and it's changing and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that. What did we do? After we went for the training, we decided, 2 years ago that, everything is not IT security. We need to kind of, have area of focus and have courses that aligns to each of those goals. We have different areas. We have an area that we call internal detection and incident handling. The student can, major on this area. We have one on cybersecurity. We have one on reverse engineering. We have digital forensic, and we have information assurance. That kind of actually allows the faculty to say, okay, we really need, these faculty to really hone up on this thing, develop it, make it solid, and make sure there are tangible goals so that there are distinct differences between these area of fields. We got some help from Homeland Security, a couple of our faculty and friends who really helped us and say, okay, this is what we're looking for when we're hiring guys from intrusion detection and incident handling. And that goal is clearly different from just a general cybersecurity, and we look at the reverse engineering, malware, and the skill set. Once we're able to identify that, we're able to look at our curriculum and say, okay, here is our gaps that we have in our curriculum, and then we're able to bridge those gaps and really help us a lot of our friends from the industry. Once we got that point, we went on and decided and say, what is going to be the main focus of each of this area of concentration? We did that, and that we were able to do this when we're doing the gap analysis for the course program. Once we finish that one, we get to this point, and this is the place where I think we make most of our significant progress in the area of assessment. We really wanted to change the mindset of our student from being focused on, I need to have A in this class, to competency. Our goal is not whether you have A. nobody asked whether you have A in this course if you go for an interview. So we want to disabuse their mind and say, okay, fine, you can take the quiz. But if you fail that quiz, you will not go to take the lab. You have to pass it. So we allow them and say, well, the quiz is still open for 7 days. You can take it for as many times, but if you don't have, like, let's say 90%, you cannot proceed to the lab section. Because we know what you're going to do once you get to the lab. You're going to screw it up, or you're going to follow that instruction step by step. You're going to complete the lab, but you won't know what you're doing anyway, because the instruction is there. You're just following the motion. So we kind of force them to make sure that they get to a certain score over here. Initially, some students were like, well, this is going to be easy because then I get to pass. But our goal is we don't care about your grade letter. If it takes you to take it 5 times, even by repeating the same question, you are learning somehow. So we get to this competency level, and at this point, they're actually learning how to do individual skill set. Can you run Nmap to find out how many hosts is up on the network? Individual skill set. Can you use Wireshark to detect somebody talking on a voice over IP? That's just one skill set. And so on and so forth. That's what we accomplish over here. Now, if a student, for example, does not pass 90% of a skill set of a particular lab, they don't get to go to the ability loop. And at the ability loop here, nobody tells you there are more support here, but there are fewer and less support at this point. At this point, we're actually throwing you into a case scenario. Okay, Mr. A has a company. He's just hired, There's an incident that happened, and they think somebody is doing X, Y, Z. You are an analyst. We wanted to analyze this kind of scenario. We throw the student into that. This, we make sure that they can do it from home. They can do it from just about anywhere in an environment. And what we did over here was they have less support. They need to be able to bring all the skills that is acquired over here together and apply it here. Our goal is we want to actually see if you can bring it together. And students who go through this format are more able to come out of the program being able to say, this is what I can do as a result of taking this class. This is a competency that I've accomplished. So when you tell them and say, well, can you do this for me? They can. They are able to. So again, we went away from, okay, you have a 2-hour lab now, you're done, to here's what you have to accomplish. I don't care whether you are a brilliant student, whether you are an average student. An average student might have to do 7 times, and a brilliant student might have to do just 1 time. But as long as we're able to complete it, that is my goal. We see our deadlines that you see you have to meet. 7 days, the lab is open for you 24/7 for 7 days. And I'm going to have to do it 5 times within those 7 days, and John might have to do it just 1 time. But if you complete it, you're still going to have the same grade. So we go from rewarding perfectness or correctness or perfection to rewarding hard work. So we tell them you only fail if you cannot work hard. You know where you are. You know what it takes for you to be successful. If you work hard, you will have A. And the first semester was kind of really rough. We get a lot of complaints from our dean because students will go to the dean and say, wow, you know, this is just, you know, I got to go to bed by 8 o'clock and whatever and so on and so forth. And we explain, we make sure we get the buy-in from the administration and tell them this is where we want to go. Our students are crazy about having this grade letter A, but that's not helping them. We need them to go to competency where they can actually do something with the skills that we're teaching them, and that's going to, you know, involve us changing the mindset. The second semester was a lot much easier for us because now they realize, you know, well, Israel is not going to go away. It's a tenured faculty, so they're not going to fire him. And that's his class. And we encourage and support our adjunct faculty and say, don't worry, the students are going to complain. They're going to whatever, be stressed about it, but this is where we want to go. Second semester was a whole lot much easier. By the time we get to the second year, the previous student are already preparing the new student and telling them this is how it's going to be. Don't complain. because that's just what it's going to be. We tried it for a year. At the end of the day, we have to do it their own way, and that begins to change the model. Now, we have, last semester, we have 5 companies who actually called us and say, hey, do you have any graduates that is coming up? Then we say, oh, yeah, sure, we have this graduate X, Y, Z, and stuff like that. Now, the company actually know our curriculum. Some of them, they will ask them and say, well, do you take this class? Say, yes, I take this class. Okay, we don't want to interview you. Go to that room and do this X, Y, Z. Because we know that in this class, they taught you guys how to do this X, Y, Z stuff. And I think that changed the model for us. For me personally, as an instructor, it gives me more opportunity that, you know what, you can be successful regardless of where you are as a student. You might have to do more, and he might have to do less. But if you work hard, everybody in my class can have A, and actually the best student can have F. If you are lazy, because now it's what you put in that you get out. So again, that's the model that really really helped us. We kind of have some certification that we map to each area of concentration for our program. Again, we try to complement the industrial certification with the hands-on, exercise and scenario that they do at the college, because we realize it's just when it's working, putting it on certification alone, because they just download the DOMs. One other thing we did was we have this multiple exit. Like I said, up until 2 years ago, most of our graduates, we call it computer forensic, we call it all kinds of names. There are about few of them that actually go on into computer forensic and get a job in that field. Majority of them have to actually go into desktop support and all that kind of stuff, because they don't really have the hands-on competency to pursue jobs in these high-end skills, whatever. And industry are not that kind enough to train them anymore. They just don't want to do all the training, they don't want to babysit. So we had actually close to 46% of our past graduates coming back to say, well, I want to retrain through the new program because I've been doing this desktop job and I don't have the skill to get out of a desktop support position. And so we have people who are coming back to retrain, and they just take maybe 1 or 2 courses and then they're gone. Somebody's going to say, well, I just want to have the BCP certification and the training. They come back, take the class, and they go. So we have the multiple exit that allow past students, to come out of it. And, we developed this model, and I copied this one from cases or project that you did last year. You did with Dr. David. And I like the kind of model that he did about job definition and competency analysis. We follow this, and we do this at the beginning 2 years ago when we were doing our gap analysis for our courses, making sure that we have a multi-dimensional aptitude assessment for the student. And they'll make this slide available for you. You can go through it later, if you want. The area I really want to kind of talk about is the professional development plan over here, and that's what's going to lead me to the Convergence Network. And, I don't know how much time do I have left here?
You still have 15, 25 minutes.
Okay. And I might probably ask Ellen, maybe 5 minutes of your time to just, sorry to put you on the spot. I know I didn't tell you this before. But she can do this a whole lot more better, maybe in 5 minutes. And then if you have questions, feel free to ask, because I'm kind of late getting into the CCN stuff. But when I got back to Minnesota last year, I told my friend, I said, wow, I can't believe, actually I went to all the 3 sessions. I went to the one in Michigan, I went to the one in Florida, I went to the one in Dallas, because I was like, well, maybe they're just going to do it a year and cancel it, and if it's a free training, I'll take it. And I do that maybe because I come from a more of a consulting background, where majority of your expenses goes towards training. Conference is conference, but training is very, very, very expensive. And having all these industry people coming to offer, and we're going to have a vCloud possibly later this year, right? So Ellen, would you come up for 5 minutes, please, and just kind of talk a little? It's about 5 minute slides, so sorry about putting you on the spot.
Well, thank you, Israel, for this opportunity. Convergence College Network is not. Did you have more slides?
Absolutely. I have everything.
All right. So these are the partners of our Convergence Technology Center grant. It's a national center funded by the National Science Foundation in the Advanced Technology Education area, which is by the MPICT. Is that kind of funding as well. So these are our partners from different areas in the country. And these are the colleges who are in our network. We call it Convergence College Network. So what we do is, one of our goals is to disseminate what we've developed, which is curriculum, programs, doing professional development, giving you some recruiting tools to get students into your program. And so what the NSF does is invest in us, and then we share all that information with you or with all these colleges in the network, so they don't have to reinvest in 30-some-odd colleges. Our actual target goal is a little bit higher than this. In about 3 years, it'll be a much larger group. So it kind of started at the bottom, so you can see the Convergence Technology Center started at Collin College, which is north of Dallas, and then we just started adding the rectangular boxes are the colleges in the network. The ovals are programs and things that have sprung from it. So in different parts of the country, they have started new programs and new training sessions that have come from this program, which is what Israel's talking about. So if you have like a new program you want to start, in our area, Convergence is an infrastructure IT type program. It started out with voice over IP. We had telephony, which you don't really see much of that nailed down in the home anymore, but your television, your computer, and your phone service all together. But it goes much broader than that, and now we have apps from different nodes that connect into the network. It's wireless. There's so many different components that, as most of you who work in network know about. So this is a list of things that we provide if you join our network that we help you with. And several things that I mentioned. Also, there's a point of contact that will help you get started. So depending on where you are, it could be a program that you have you want to revive, you want to add some things to it, or maybe you want to start from scratch. We'll help you figure that out and walk you through it. Then the Summer Institute training that Israel mentioned is one of the key things. These are the upcoming ones we have for the summer. One of our partners at Fox Valley Technical College in Appleton, Wisconsin will be hosting a week there. Another partner at Florida State College in Jacksonville will be hosting another week toward the end of June. And then in our home-based location, which is a little north of Dallas, we will have a week in July. So if you're interested, you can contact us on connectedtech.org, which is our website, and we will have more information about that. We're going to do a presentation specifically on the CCN tomorrow, I believe at 10:30 is the time that we're going to do a presentation. So if you are interested in learning more, Dr. Emma Healer, who is the principal investigator of the program, will be there, and our MC, our program manager, Jen McGregor, will be filming that one as well. So we'll be happy to talk to you. If there's Bill, too. Oh, and Bill Feincheck, yes. Bill will be co-presenting. I
didn't know that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so he's going to be co-presenting. And so Bill was one of our earlier college partners in the network. And so he will share his experiences on how he started with very little and used some of the materials that we developed, and their college was able to ramp up very quickly. So that'll be a very good thing. So that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellen.
Okay.
Any questions so far? Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Your ask model that you showed, I like that. And I'm sitting back here and I'm questioning, well, how can I kind of incorporate all of that together, sometimes in my classes, sometimes not, sometimes it's just an knowledge piece, sometimes it's just a lab piece, sometimes it's just an ability loop piece. Like specifically in a class, you brought up NMAP and you're talking about NMAP. Okay, so the knowledge loop is, okay, you can answer questions about NMAP. The skill loop is, yeah, I can run NMAP and do a minus whatever P scan and see what nodes are open on the network. Yep. The ability loop would be, hey, here's the scenario. How do what command would you use to figure out what ports are open, what the ANA ports are open, whatever.
Absolutely.
These boxes. Did retention change with your students? Did you find you had students that maybe you were helping along and nudging more that were not really great students? Or with this model, I could possibly see them falling by the wayside.
Yeah, here is what
may not be the worst thing, but we are all interested in retention.
Yeah, here is the main thing we face.
Say that politically correct.
Yeah, you know, you hear it. You know, you're right. My most challenge when we started this was student mindset. You know, they just resist that change. There was that resistance, like, wow, you know, this is different. This is different from Mr. So-and-so class when I took it. And I said, okay, what did you have in that class? My argument. And they said, well, I have A in that class. Oh, okay, well, you have A in CC and A2 class. Fine. Set up an IP address on this machine. I bring the switch and say, can you set up this switch? Set up a VLAN for me on this switch. And then they can do it. And I said, well, it's going to be hard for you to get a job. You will get a degree, but there are thousands of people on the street with a degree, and you will be owing a whole lot of money, and you will not be able to get a job. So initially there was this kind of a lot of explanation back and forth because you are changing the assessment method that they've used to all of their life. And, you know, they come from high school, all of them, you know, their self-esteem is through the roof. But they don't know anything, really. So you're telling them and saying you have to actually work hard, you have to do. So, yeah, there was this resistance. The first thing I made sure I do was I explained to my dean exactly what we wanted to do. Make sure, because they're going to talk to her, so I want to make sure that before they talk to my dean, she knows exactly what we're trying to do, get all the faculties to buy into that idea, and then we design the course outline to reflect this. So, and explain to the student exactly what we're expecting from them. So there's no surprises from anybody. Actually, what I found out for these is our enrollment, because, you know, the problem we had was we had women, about 26% of our population in our program were women, which was higher than the college average. Usually, they drop out a lot earlier. Once they pass the first semester, we retain 100% of them. Our problem was when they come in initially. By introducing this method, we allow people who have, you know, other stuff going on in their life to work from home. The challenge for you is you have to provide accessibility, you know, if you're going to do this, which means they have to be able to do it from home, you know, because if you're saying you can do it over and over and over, you are saying, well, you have multiple attempts to take this, you know, question or labs or whatever, and I'm saying failure one time doesn't mean you failed. You only fail if you stop trying. And they understand, oh, so I can have A. Yeah, so yeah, you can have A, and you don't have to be the best student in my class. You just have to be the best hard-working student in my class. And I kind of say it all the time. Now, if I'm saying stuff, my students actually know what is going to end my sentence. It's hard-working. Because I just stressed it until they buy into that idea. That the goal is for you from going, I don't care if you're the first student to finish. I care if you finish. And if you finish in 7 days, if you do it 7 times in 7 days, and you at the 7th time you get it right, you have A for that particular exercise. And once they understand it, my retention right now, we were at like, I'll say 72% earlier 2 years ago. Now we're sitting almost like 91%, which was much higher because now you don't have to fall out and drop out if you are struggling because you have multiple attempts to do it. So that really, really did help us. I restructured my course objective to make sure that what do I expect students to know from chapter 1? Maybe it's just knowledge, and they just have the quiz. And I said, okay, maybe with 2, I need them to be able to do X, Y, Z, and I have a lab that we've designed that reflects that. And they have access to that 24/7 for 7 days. And then there is this, you know, scenario, case-based scenario. I don't tell them about this. And, you know, by the way, they can actually go back and do this. If they forgot what they learned from here, they can come back and do this and then come back here again. And now they start going back from memorizing the steps. Because, for example, if you were to take Certified Ethical Hacker now, it's so laid out that you can just follow the step one by one. I mean, you can take that lab drunk. right? You know, because it's designed for you to not have too many questions to ask. So the kind of steps,
For nothing to go wrong.
yeah, for nothing to go wrong. But what happens if I give you, because your boss is not going to give you that step by step. We want to teach you how to think, how to learn. So we give you a case scenario, there is no steps, there is nothing. There's just the problem, there is the lab, there is the time in the world. And in this section, we give them an extended time. Actually, their final for the class, I posted the first week of the semester. So your final lab is not a secret. We wanted to know what your final is going to look like. We wanted to know what your midterm is going to look like. Because we're not interested in surprising you. We want you to learn. And if you learn, our job is done. So there's no surprises. There's no, actually some of my students, they bring the final the first week. And then they start talking to their, students who have taken my class and say, how do you solve this problem? And sometimes they will hide it when they see me coming in the hallway, and I pretend like I don't see it, but they are doing exactly what I wanted them to do. I want them to be talking about that, and that's exactly what I've provoked. Get them to start thinking about how can I solve this problem before I even start having the lecture. And that is the goal. If you get your colleagues to buy into it, you get your dean, your admission to buy into it, then you can change, because you're changing, the way they learn. Because I tell my students, things are going to change. I'm teaching Windows 7 now, but Windows 8 is already around the corner. Teaching 2008 now, 2012 is around the corner. If I can teach you how to learn, then we will have done our job, rather than just teaching you how to just do one particular task. And that and I'll be more than happy to share, some of my lab design and stuff with you. Go by
your rubrics on how you're maybe grading, how your students are doing it. I find that sometimes I do an all or nothing thing with lab work. If they've completed the lab, they got the right answers. Okay, done. That's good. But I always find myself trying to think of doing a little bit more with it. In that scenario, we do some scenarios too, and I add some scenarios in, but I'd like to do more with that as well.
And it really did, we got a huge feedback from especially the female population, of our students. They love it. They just so much love it. The ability for them to sit up at home, the class may be going too fast for them, but then when they get back at home on Friday at night, on Saturday on the weekend, they go at it and they try to do their own thing, take their time to solve the problem. Think, go online, watch YouTube, go back to the problem again. And then they finally say, wow, finally I got it. And, that's actually when you get, but expect a little bit rough start, your first semester, because again, you're going to get some pushback from students who say, well, I'm used to having A, from my other class, I have all A's. And then you're telling them, well, it's not really about having A's because nobody cares about that once you leave this place. Let's get you to understand how to do this stuff. Competency, not a grade letter. And once they buy into it, then your life is going to be a whole lot easier. The challenge on your side is, as an instructor, now you have to know your stuff. Because you've gone away from, of course, nothing's wrong with that, because now you've gone from just flipping PowerPoint slide on their face. You are actually showing them competency, and that doesn't just apply to the student alone, it also applies to you. So, so that is the deal with, with setting this kind of, stuff up. Yes, sir.
When you have the people do this final exam that they have in the beginning,
yes.
I do something similar in my class.
Okay.
But I make them do it in my presence. I guess they have like 5 hours to do it. But how do you do it if they can do it any time during the semester? How do you make sure that the people are doing the work themselves?
Yeah, great, because you have to defend it. So, and there's one thing about, IT project, you cannot BS your way through it if you have to actually defend it. If I tell you to do a vulnerability assessment of a e-commerce website that was developed, and I'm asking you to come and defend it, if you do not do it we will not go past 3 minutes before I know that you didn't do it. You know, it's so easy, just like a piece of cake, the easiest to grade, because there's always this trap that you leave along the labs, that you know you're supposed to trip over this. And if you just went over and say, how did you do it? You know, and you ask for them a couple of questions, you know right away that they didn't do it. And I tell them ahead of time that I will know if you don't do it. Because my goal is not to catch you. My goal is to not even let you think about, faking it. Because I will know if you fake it. And then I'll tell the student and say, you know what, let's try it. Let's try it. And they will try you. They tried it a couple times. And they say, here's my lab, I've done it. I said, you sure you've done it? How many hours do you spend on it? And they said, well, I spent, 14 hours. Oh, that's great. Which area do you find the most difficult? And then they find out the easiest one. You didn't do it. And I said, all right, go back and start the command you run to do this. And then they start, sweat breaking on their forehead. If you tell somebody that you conduct, vulnerability assessment on a network, and somebody is standing on your shoulder asking you to type all the commands that you use, and you couldn't, you're using the wrong switch and stuff like that. They know right away. So the goal is just to, unleash them. And sometimes, and there are some students in my class that I think, well, they're just doubtful that they're going to make it because they come from a construction background and stuff like that. And when you give them that time, the time that they needed, some of them need like 5 times, 6 times to go over something that will have frustrated me if I have to just do it for them in the confinement of a 3-hour class. By giving them that unlimited time and unlimited access to that lab, they get to take their own time and get to where they need to get to at their own pace without really frustrating me. And eventually they get there and we all meet at the end and everybody's happy. And I think that's actually the joy of it personally for me, is allowing the student the freedom to learn at their own pace without really carrying all the burden or the shoulder on your leg, because they are good. It just might take them some time to do it. Somebody who comes from this construction background, they're used to physical stuff. They have to touch it. And so teaching them this abstract of Wireshark is just so different concept that they have not developed mentally to grasp. And sometimes they need that multiple repetition and stuff like that to take it. And this model kind of really work for us. Okay? You don't know time, right?
Yes.
Any question? All right. Thank you.
Wow.